Good afternoon, everybody, and Sheriff Balaam here, and welcome to another series of Did You Know? Before we get into and I introduce my guests, a couple things I want to remind everybody is if you have a question about today's topic, and hopefully you will, or questions about other topics we've covered, or just questions in general you want to ask of the Sheriff's Office, please send them in. We will try and answer them. Also, turn on your notifications so that you can stay connected to the Sheriff's Office, not only for other Did You Know series, but any other important information we have that we need to send out. Today is October. We are in the fall. It is the holiday season, and soon enough we have trick-or-treating coming. And so did you know that fentanyl is in our community and it is becoming one of the top killers within our community? And so today I'm joined by Lieutenant Zirkle and Sergeant Christensen, and we wanted to talk about several things. One, the Sheriff's Office has been sponsoring for the last 2 years, or actually 3 years, a resource fair. And so for those out there that have an addiction and don't know where to go, we're going to talk today about how you can get some of those resources. And we have a resource fair coming up, and I'm going to have Sergeant Christensen talk about that. The other thing is we have trick-or-treating coming, and we all love trick-or-treating. And so, Lieutenant Zirkle, we're going to talk about the fentanyl in our streets, what we're seeing, and the drugs we're seizing, and for parents, some of those tips as your kids go out, if you're not with them and you just let them go out with their friends, some tips before you let them dig in and dive into their candy you may want to look at, not just for fentanyl, but for any other things that they may have picked up as they were out trick-or-treating. So thank you, Lieutenant Zirkle, Sergeant Christensen, for joining me. So I'm going to talk first because I think within the detention facility, we've seen a trend of some overdoses, unfortunately, within the last month or 2 weeks.
It's been within the last 2 weeks.
2 weeks, we've had 4 or 6.
Oh, we might. I couldn't tell you for sure 4 or 6 on that, but it's been.
We've had several overdoses, and they've all been related to fentanyl. And so, your unit, the Detention Services Unit, you oversee that.
Yeah.
And part of that is working with individuals that come into our facility. You screen them.
Yep.
You look for resources.
Correct.
You provide them, and then work with the courts, and then that soft handoff when they go out.
Yes.
But one of the great things that your unit has done is the resource fair.
Thank you.
And when is that coming up?
That is actually coming up this Saturday.
Okay.
It's going to be at the Boys and Girls Club in Sparks off 9th Street. It's from 2 to 6, and we're going to have a large variety of different community providers that are going to be there for everything from looking into substance use disorders as well as housing, Medicaid, a variety of different things that we can provide to the community and that maybe the community didn't know about for the different programs out there.
Well, that's awesome. And I know in the past, we've always had several stories. I know the one, I think it was the grandma when we had it in front of our building. She was coming to visit her grandson and didn't know where to go and stopped at the resource fair and found out resources.
Exactly. So we're really excited to get this going. We had one in May, and this is our October one, and it gives us yet another opportunity to spread these resources and information out to the community.
Now let's talk a little bit about the detention facility because, for those that have an addiction, get in trouble, they get arrested for whatever crimes.
Right.
They end up in our facility.
Yeah.
For family members out there or for those that have addiction, and we'll talk with Lieutenant Zirkle on the outside of what we're seeing with our drugs, but they get into our facility because sometimes they're secreted in body parts we can't see.
Right.
So for family members out there that know one of their friends, family, relatives has been arrested and may know they have an addiction, should they reach out to us and kind of give a heads up? Or if they get a call from, hey, I'm incarcerated, and they know maybe they have what should they tell somebody?
I agree. I think it'd be a good idea to reach out to us. Let us know. We'd rather be front loaded with the information than try to find it later because some of the folks that come in here, they're levels of embarrassment. They don't want to admit that they might have an opioid addiction or a substance use disorder. And we're still trying to find that information out from them just by talking to them. So information helps us out to hopefully get them better care. We do screen everybody that comes into the sheriff's office, and we do screen them for opioid use disorders. And then we try to, medical tries a game plan and see what we can do to address that disorder and get them the appropriate help. Some of those things include potentially getting them into our medication-assisted treatment program, which is developed to address addiction. It's probably one of our favorite programs here because we really are trying to help the individual that's in our custody to help, take the pain of that addiction that they're dealing with daily and also provide them with counseling and further treatment when they leave our facility. We have that. Plus, we're really active in the harm reduction for our jail right now with even offering upon release, an opportunity to have both fentanyl test strips to take home, as well as Narcan kits that they can take home as well. Ultimately trying to save lives. And that's the best way we get them started to know that at least they can take care of themselves when they get out. The next thing we have coming up is our Track B vending machine, which is going to be in the front of the building. And we've made a partnership with Track B to help with harm reduction, providing both Narcan and fentanyl test strips so that you don't have to worry about that by being incarcerated. You can actually just come to the facility, set up an account with Track B so you can obtain those things as needed. So ultimately, we want to try to save lives, whether they're in the jail or out in the community, and we'll get the tools that we can to do so.
And what I would tell everybody out there that has a family member or a friend, loved one that has an addiction is, again, you've heard it before here. If you are looking for resources, we would prefer you come through the front door and you can ask for help. And your unit will come out and we have a resource guide. It's inmates can access it while they're in here, but they can give you a link in that resource guide. They can provide you so that if you're looking for addiction counseling, mental health counseling, housing,
Absolutely.
dental, you name it. You guys have a long list. And again, Saturday, if anything else, show up, Boys and Girls Club in Sparks.
Yes.
From 2 to 6.
From 2 to 6. Children are welcome. We will be giving out candy, and we encourage you to come in costume. So we want to be not just a resource for everyone, but to make it a fun event for everyone as well. So I encourage you, bring the kids. We have lots of candy to give out as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you and everything you're doing inside. I appreciate it. Lieutenant Zirkle on the outside.
Yes, sir.
So you oversee our interdiction. Let's talk about interdiction, then we'll roll into trick-or-treating. What are we seeing with fentanyl when we're seizing drugs on our highways or wherever in our community?
So part of my responsibility is obviously managing our interdiction unit and our regional narcotic unit, which is a regional team of all the law enforcement agencies in the Truckee Meadows. We have seen an uptick in fentanyl seizures, both powder and fentanyl pills coming into our community. The fentanyl pills that we typically see are counterfeit. They are not prescription drugs. They are produced primarily in Mexico with fentanyl to resemble those prescription pills, and then they come over in large quantities into our country and are distributed throughout our street. We have seen those pills come through and cycle through. We still do see pills, but more recently we've seen an uptick in powdered fentanyl coming into our communities, powdered fentanyl coming in mixed in with other street drugs like methamphetamine or cocaine. And so we have seen the uptick in the overdose deaths that are occurring in our community because of our streets being saturated with that drug that's come in.
And I know I saw something out there, and as we roll into trick-or-treating, there was a national story about the colored fentanyl pills that look like, vitamin C pills for kids. Have we seen that in our community yet?
We have. We've seen both what they're trending or calling rainbow fentanyl in our community, both in powder form and in pill form. The powder form can come in all different types of colors. It might have 3 or 4 different colors in the same bag. And we have seen pills come into our community that are different colors, almost with the appearance of like Skittles or something to that effect. There is no intelligence that we have that shows that these drugs are being marketed towards children or people under the age of 18. It seems to be more like in a saturated market, a specific dealer is trying to make his product stand out or her product stand out from the rest. And by creating a rainbow color, it's something new to try, or the potency on the yellow might seem more or feel like it is more than the purple. And so we're seeing the dealers dealing different types to try and create their own brand or their own market, if you will.
And so, again, that's good to know. And with Halloween coming, when we grew up, we all remember, the razor blades and take your candy down to our X-ray machines. But I think it is important, most parents, especially if they have little ones, they're with them. But as you get older, you let your kids go out and trick or treat. So what are some tips as parents if they're worried? What should they look for just in case the kids somehow, as they're walking down their neighborhood or they go into another neighborhood with friends and go trick or treating? What should they do?
Well, first I'll say that I've seen a lot of news stories, whether it's on Facebook or on the news or the national news, of some information out there that these rainbow fentanyl are marketed towards children or possibly being given out at the doorstep for kids trick-or-treating. We have no intelligence in this community that that's occurring. The basis of that really doesn't make business sense. Obviously, people deal drugs to make money, and just to give it away isn't good business, if you will. And so the likelihood of your child being distributed fentanyl from a stranger at their doorstep is unlikely. What's more likely is that they come in contact with other people that are using drugs, or their parents or their friends' parents are using drugs. We have seen some of these, especially marijuana edibles, with packaging that's colorful and similar to candies. It may be, say, something that appears to be a legitimate type of candy, and the trademarks change just a little bit and wouldn't be noticeable to an 8-year-old or a 5-year-old. And so we're asking people that are using these drugs to please keep them out of the reach of children so we don't have that accidental exposure. As far as trick-or-treating, I mean, it's common sense stuff. We've all done it. Pay attention to where your kids are going. Pay attention to what neighborhoods they're in. Pay attention to who is around. And probably more importantly, pay attention to what they're bringing back into your home. Go through that bag of candy, dump it out, get rid of anything that comes in a Ziploc bag or is homemade or is not commercially packaged or doesn't resemble a type of treat that you've seen in the store or purchased yourself. Those things need to go in the trash can. Be aware of what your kids are taking. Don't just let them take that bag to their room and go through it. That's probably the most thing. I believe we're probably more likely to have a kid exposed accidentally in their own environment or a friend's house than we are to have strangers passing this out at the doorstep, if that makes sense.
And so I'd probably say for maybe those kids that are a little older, maybe high schoolish age, that may go to a party, right? That's where parents should talk about, hey, be cautious of, when you go to these parties, that exposure if you see drugs about in that party, and be aware that, if you come in contact, you may be putting yourself at risk.
Yeah, I mean, have that conversation with your children. It's important that they know, the kids go out, they grow, they hang out with their friends, and they do experiment. And if they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the education, they're more likely to be involved in something that might hurt them. Tell your kids, hey, don't take these pills. The risks of these pills outweigh whatever intoxicated effect that you're going to get out of that stuff. You don't know what you're taking. You don't know who made it. It's not something that's regulated. And if you take the wrong pill, you could kill yourself with it. So talk to your kids about that. Explain. Let them know that it's out there. Have the conversation with them and try to teach them to stay away from these things that could harm them.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And so I think a couple takeaways I want to really hit on. First of all, if you're out there and you need any resources, so not just addiction, but mental health, dental, you name it, this Saturday, Boys and Girls Club in Sparks from 2 to 6, come by. If you have little ones, bring them with you. They have a costume. Bring their little pumpkin or whatever bag they have to trick or treat. You'll have candy.
Yes, we will.
But we're here to make sure that we link our community up with those resource providers that we have in our community. And secondarily, on the trick or treating, it's coming up. Halloween's always a fun event. And so for parents out there, we want you to have fun. Make sure if you're with your kids, you have lighting that has nothing to do with drugs, but just being safe. Don't run across the streets. I know in my neighborhood, I always watch and cringe as you see the kids are excited. So just teach them caution, be out there with them. If they're older, I think the one takeaway we need to really let parents know is have that discussion with them. As they get older, you have to have that discussion, what they may encounter as they go out with their friends at parties, because we want them to be safe. And lastly, we want to tell everybody out there, until the next time, again, turn on your notifications so you can stay connected with us. Send in your questions. If it has something related to this or you have other questions, if we don't get to it, we will answer them. But more importantly, we want to wish everybody out there a safe and happy trick or treat. And we'll see you next time on Did You Know?